Today is February 19th. On this day, in 1942, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066, which authorized the military to forcibly remove and imprison 120,000 Americans of Japanese descent who lived in the western states. My mother was a junior high girl on the family farm in Harbor City, Los Angeles. With 4 days' notice and only what they could carry in their arms, she and her family had to drive their car in a military police escorted caravan nonstop to the Santa Anita racetrack. There my grandfather would auction his car for $25. He had to surrender the farm, the house, the barn, the tractor, the truck, and the ripe crops in the field. At Santa Anita, they were assigned 2 horse stalls, which had been whitewashed but not cleaned. They were given large cloth sacks and pointed to the hay to make beds for themselves. They lived in the Santa Anita horse stalls for 7 months until their camp was built. At the peak of that summer of 1942, when July temperatures averaged 97 in Arcadia, almost 19,000 inmates lived just 10 minutes east of here in Santa Anita. In the fall, they were shipped to a swampland prison camp by old trains, to Jerome, Arkansas for the next 3 years. My mother's crime was having the face of the enemy. Executive Order 9066 did not specify race or ancestry. It did not name Japanese Americans as targets. An executive order today might not name Muslims as targets. A prison construction contract might not name black men as targets. Yet the unnamed intention of Executive Order 9066 was clear and effective, so only Japanese Americans were swept up into mass incarceration. 120,000 of them, 18,719 of them right here in Santa Anita. 2/3 of them were native-born United States citizens. 1/3 were immigrants who could not be naturalized because the law forbade it since the early 20th century, and the naturalization of Asians wasn't even allowed until 1952.
Say that.
But 46 years later, the United States government finally apologized to Japanese Americans in the Civil Liberties Act of 1988. It declared that government actions were based on race prejudice, war hysteria, and a failure of political leadership, and not on legitimate security reasons. In the 1980s, it became revealed that the prime political pressure for the evacuation had come from California agribusiness, because Japanese American farmers produced a majority of the market in several crops. At the signing of the Civil Liberties Act in 1988, President Reagan said, "We gather here today to right a grave wrong. This action, taken without trial, without jury, it was based solely on race." And the president admitted the internment of Japanese Americans was a mistake. The fact that our nation could apologize is thanks to the civil rights movement. Activist Yuri Kochiyama was present when her friend Malcolm X was shot, and she leaped to the Audubon Ballroom stage and cradled his head in her hands as he died on February 21st. This is why we have Asians for Black Lives today, because all our stories are connected and interwoven. And yet, And yet today there are still Americans who do not even know about this incarceration of US citizens. Today, government leaders reference the Japanese-American internment as a good example of how to treat minority people. So we must remember, today is the 75th anniversary of President FDR's signing of Executive Order 9066. Today, we remember.